Here I am going to present to you my Field Experience Observation Final Project by Haylee Herring, an Education 3330, Section 20, with Professor Dr. Ricardo Lumbreras. I was placed at Toller ISD in the elementary school. Here are some pictures of the city and the small shops and gas stations that there are around in this city. The population of the total number of students in Toller is 786 students. Most of their population is made up of whites, which is 91%. Others include Hispanic, which is 6.1%, and African Americans, which make up 0.8%. There are 30.9% at-risk students, 33.8% economically disadvantaged, and 0.8% students are limited English proficient. The enrollment by program, if you look at it, is 0.8% bilingual, 33.8% career and technical, 3.4% gifted and talented, and 6.4% special education. Here is my mentor's classroom design. She has 3 rows of 4 tables in each row. Each table seats up to 2 students next to each other. However, some tables only have 1 student, depending on what works best for each student. Lesson planning. Collaborative planning was done among the 3 third-grade teachers. This was evident because during recess time, the 3 teachers would discuss how their lesson went and how much the students were understanding what was being taught. They would discuss what methods worked best for them and what ways they could make improvements. TEKs were used when planning lessons. My mentor teacher would mention to me sometimes about the TEKs they were learning that day and what they were using for their lesson plan that was stated at the top of their paper. However, TEKs were never stated or written for the class, so the students had no idea what a TEK was and the main purpose of them. They were never stated, written, or displayed for the students. Not stating or having the TEKs displayed hurt the students because they never knew what they needed to master or understand from each lesson. The designed activities were appropriate for the main topics of each lesson. My mentor teacher used a book to attain all her materials for each lesson. You could tell that she did not make them because they were all similar with the layout each week, and sometimes she did not understand what they were asking. The instructional delivery, group work, and individual practice all matched the lesson appropriately. The questions and problems that were practiced together as a whole were very similar to the ones that were on the individual practice worksheets. The lesson was open with the instructional delivery and closed with the individual practice worksheet. Lesson delivery. The lessons that my mentor teacher taught were open through an instructional delivery most of the time. However, other times the teacher would just go straight into teaching or showing a video to introduce the lesson. TEKs were not stated at the beginning of the lesson, therefore I do not know if the language objectives were utilized. I could not tell you if the students needed to either understand, identify, collect, compare, or apply the main points from the TEKs. Guiding questions introduced by asking students about their prior knowledge. Some of the times, my mentor teacher would ask the students what they knew about a certain topic before explaining what it was. For example, when they were going over perimeter, she asked students if they knew this word, what does it show, how can it be found, and any examples from the real world that they knew. The teacher would state the main topic they would be learning, such as perimeter, area, or elapsed time. Students were definitely engaged during the lesson. They would ask multiple questions and gave many real-life examples and stories. Teachers would ask many different questions to check for understanding. The questions that were asked ranged from different levels of thinking. Some were geared to check their understanding, while others asked students to analyze and evaluate. Lessons were not closed with revisiting the TEKS, but with a worksheet for individual practice. Students would complete a worksheet from their workbook and then turn it in for the teacher to be graded. Assessment. Assessment is the process of measuring and observing what students have learned. Assessment focuses on identifying the knowledge, skills, and attitudes students have acquired through a certain lesson. There are many different ways that a teacher can assess their students, from a diagnostic, a formative, a summative, a norm reference, criterion reference, or an overall benchmark or STAR test. All these assessments are utilized in the classroom to see if students have grasped the concept or not. A formative assessment assesses a student's performance during instruction and occurs regularly throughout the instructional process. A summative measures a student's achievement at the end of instruction. A diagnostic assessment assesses a student's strengths, weaknesses, knowledge, and skills prior to the instruction, basically like learning their prior knowledge. A norm reference assessment compares a student's performance against a norm group, and a criterion reference assessment measures a student's performance against a goal, a specific object, or a standard. There was both formative and summative assessments that were utilized in my classroom, such as time multiplication quizzes, end of the unit test, and benchmarks. Assessments showed how much the students understood, but the teacher did not use every assessment data for reteaching instructional purposes. For the time multiplication quizzes and the end of the unit test, she looked at them but never went over them or retaught the most missed questions. However, for the benchmark, the teachers and students went over them during RTI, which is response to intervention. All of the third grade classes were divided up into their level of understanding and assigned one of the three teachers. From there, the teachers would help students see what they got wrong and why. If a question was missed by more than half, the teacher would give a mini lesson over the specific content. Classroom management. Classroom management is the process in which teachers and students work together and create and maintain appropriate behavior in the classroom setting. Some of the rules that were included in my mentor teacher's classroom included no talking while she was talking, to face forward and sit with your bottom in the chair during the lesson, and to not shut out the answers. She would prefer for them to raise their hand and she will call on them. Some procedures that were included were lining up to go to recess and entering the classroom. When it was time to line up for recess, students would get in a straight line with arm distance apart from each other. When they were entering the classroom, students would line up against the walls and would wait patiently until the teacher allowed them to go into the classroom. No students were allowed to be in the classroom without a teacher present. Rules are implemented for undesirable behaviors that have set consequences, while procedures are expected classroom behaviors with no set consequences to ensure teaching and learning is moving along nicely. Consequences that I witnessed while doing my observation were students having to sit quietly before recess, limiting their time, and also students having to walk laps outside during recess. This was actually seen a lot during my time here because the students were always rowdy and talkative during lessons, so the students would have to walk laps, one or two, around the whole playground and then go talk to their teacher about what they did wrong. I believe the best way to run a class is setting up a schedule and being flexible, having expectations, and always being organized. By maintaining all of these characteristics, your classroom can be well managed and can run smoothly and effectively throughout the whole semester. But you have to start teaching them this at the beginning of the year very early so they know your expectations. Some students got off task multiple times while there. Actually, my teacher stated that this was a very hard group of students. They were very confident and always had something to say and give their own input. So they would always talk out loud and against each other. Therefore, the classroom management was hard to maintain multiple times throughout the day. Miscellaneous. Classroom management is the most important lesson that I have learned during my time at Toller Elementary School. I would like to utilize the technology that my mentor teacher has used in her classroom. Students work on iPads, computers, and smart boards to complete independent practice and extra work for each content subject. Programs like iStation or Extra Math help students get ahead and have a little extra practice. I would not utilize the many worksheets that my mentor teacher uses in my classroom because I feel like students will get bored and get very restless. I prefer students to be up, engaged, and working together with each other. Working together collaboratively can help students learn even more and help them for the real life world. In these pictures to the right, there are two students that are working on the iPads and the computers. And also, there is a student working on a worksheet, and I've taken a picture of what her notes look like. And these are the notes or the type of format layout that was used every day while I was observing my class. A continue of the miscellaneous things that I have learned is that the most effective teaching technique that I witnessed was my mentor teacher walking around and having mini conferences with each student. The teacher would up to different groups of students and ask them what they're struggling on and help them solve problems. Additionally, my teacher would hold mini conferences at the back left table with groups of students to work together on problems that they're all having issues on. The most ineffective teaching technique that I witnessed was using too many worksheets and not using many manipulatives, as I said before. I normally watch the math time, therefore, I believe that many manipulatives should be used. I was noticeable that the students were getting very bored with the number of worksheets that they had to complete. It was always the same routine of instructional delivery, then practice with the teacher, take notes, glue that note sheet in your math journal, and then a worksheet from their workbook. This school was very small and is located in the rural areas. Therefore, the classroom technology and the supplies were limited for the students and the teachers. I grew up in the city of San Antonio, so I want to teach preferably back there in a place that has larger school districts and numbers. The reason behind my preference is because I want the one-to-one technology in my classroom and the many opportunities to bring in the real-world examples. Having the one-to-one technology can allow students to be prepared and work together, but also work on their own because technology has been improving and will keep on improving in our day-to-day life. And having and bringing in real-life world examples such as like during job fair day or career day can help students really learn what they need to and get the examples and knowledge that they should get. Overall, I had a fantastic experience in my third grade classroom at Toller Elementary School. My mentor teacher was super encouraging, supporting, and helped me along the way with anything that I needed. She was very good at communicating what her expectations were and allowed me to help out in the classroom whenever it was needed. I also would like to thank the other teachers at Toller Elementary School for allowing me the opportunity and also teaching me some things about how a school runs. And lastly, the students deserve a lot of recognition because they are the ones that helped me learn the best ways and techniques for me to become a better teacher one day. I appreciate you listening to my field experience observation, and I hope you learned a little bit about my time in the classroom.